Yo, what's up, beautiful potatoes? Welcome to all friends, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. And someone suggested me to check out this wonderful video. I hope this would turn out to be a great video. Hold on. And it's all about Israel and Palestine, and the title is Israel and Palestine Explained. So I know there's a lot of conflicts over there. So thought of exploring those conflicts and get to know more about those conflicts and what's happening between Israel and Palestine, and spread the word to all my the few viewers or subscribers, or for the folks who are watching me for the first time but still like my videos, and if they want to share my videos, please feel free to go and share my videos. And yes, so we're gonna be checking out that video. But before jumping in this video, if you guys are new to my channel, please don't forget to hit the red subscribe button, guys, and let's get into this video.
Through the centuries, land we now call Israel and Palestine changed hands many times as different groups of people battled for control of the area. Over time, the establishment of the Jewish, Christian, and Muslim religions made the land, especially the city of Jerusalem, a uniquely holy place. For about 1,000 years in the Middle Ages, the Arabs almost always held control of the area, and actually lived relatively peacefully with the Jews. In fact, it was the Christians, during their brief rule, who massacred and persecuted both the Jews and Muslims.
Really? I had no idea.
At the turn of the 20th century, around 1900, the idea of statehood had firmly taken root around the world. And so, naturally, many Jews wanted a country of their own. But in the 2,000 years since the founding of Judaism, most Jews had left the Promised Land and spread throughout the world.
Okay.
But with the goal of creating their own country now achievable, large numbers of Jews started to come back and settle in Palestine. World War I brought the defeat of the Ottoman Empire at the hands of the British, French, and Russians, giving them control of the Middle East.
Okay.
They divided it up, and the British were given a mandate over Palestine. With the more sympathetic British now in control, these Jewish Zionists, as they were called, seized the opportunity to accelerate their plan for statehood. But creating a state for the Jews wasn't really the goal of the British, who just wanted to create a government in Palestine where power could be shared peacefully by the different groups living there. And then there were the Arabs, who didn't trust the British or the Jews because many of the Arab leaders thought the British would favor the Jews. So the Arabs refused to form any government that included Jewish participation. But before long, this stubbornness grew into frustration at not being represented. So some within the Arab community turned to violence and carried out bombing attacks against Jewish settlers and started to destroy the crops the settlers were growing on their farms. About a decade later, World War II broke out, and millions of Jews were killed by the Nazis in the Holocaust.
I know.
After the American, British, and Allied forces defeated the Germans, hundreds of thousands of Jews came to Palestine, and the UN General Assembly passed a fateful plan
I had a little idea about this incident.
Arab and Jewish states, with the all-important city of Jerusalem placed under international control. But the 5 members of the Arab League didn't want the Jews to control any part of the land, so they all voted against the plan. In May 1948, after much planning and covert arms acquisition, the Jewish leadership went ahead and declared the establishment of the State of Israel, and quickly convinced the US government, the Soviet Union, and many other countries to officially recognize it. As expected by the Israelis, the Arab countries invaded Palestine immediately, but the Israelis were ready and were more disciplined, better trained, and well armed.
I know this. They are like
too strong
one of the
Arab
best armies in the world.
When the dust settled, after 10 months of fighting and peace agreements were signed, Israel not only kept the whole area under the original UN plan, it controlled almost 60% of the land that had been planned for the Arab state. More than 700,000 Palestinian Arabs had also fled the fighting or were kicked out of their homes, and about the same amount of Jews migrated into Israel from Arab lands. So you had about 1.5 million people basically switching places, making the population of Israel much more Jewish. A generation later, in 1967, tensions were again reaching a boiling point. There had been some deadly cross-border attacks from both the Israelis and the Arabs, so Israel decided to launch a surprise invasion, and in 6 days, won control of the Gaza Strip and Sinai Peninsula from
Oh,
Egypt,
okay.
took the West Bank and East Jerusalem away from Jordan, and kicked Syria out of the Golan Heights.
Okay.
Fewer than 1,000 Israeli troops were killed in the short war, but over 20,000 Arab soldiers died, went missing, or were captured. And just like in the 1948 war, hundreds of thousands more Palestinian Arabs left. Since then, Israel's really built up its security capabilities.
I know they are like one of the best armies in the world, and India has like some very good relations with Israel. Recently, Narendra Modi also.
10 years after the war,
Recently, Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, also visited Israel, and he got like one of the best welcomes ever.
Israel returned the Sinai Peninsula to Egypt, and in 2005,
India loves Israel, man.
The settlers out of the Gaza Strip. But there are around 750,000 Jewish settlers in the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. In 1993, Israel struck a deal with the leader of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, Yasser Arafat.
I know Yasser.
Agreed to allow the Palestinians to set up a government and rule themselves in the Gaza Strip and the city of Jericho in the West Bank. In exchange, the PLO recognized the right of Israel to exist. This new Palestinian government, headed by Arafat, became known as the Palestinian Authority and was controlled by its majority party, Fatah. But not all Palestinians, especially people in the Gaza Strip, liked Arafat's more moderate approach, and so a split took place, leading to the rise of the more extremist Islamic party, Hamas, whose leaders refused to negotiate with Israel or recognize its right to exist. In 2006, Hamas won the Palestinian parliamentary election, but Fatah refused to be a minority party, and a violent power struggle between Hamas and Fatah played out in the streets of Gaza. After more than 100 people died in the fighting, Hamas controlled the area. So Arafat's successor, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, essentially cut the Gaza Strip loose from the Palestinian Authority and set up an emergency, Fatah-controlled government in the West Bank. So today, there are two fairly different Palestines. One is the West Bank, led by Abbas and his Fatah party, who more or less coexist peacefully with their many Jewish neighbors, although Israel is in the process of building a 400-mile-long barrier along the border. It's Abbas who's engaged in ongoing negotiations with Israel and the international community about reaching a solution to the conflict that would allow Palestine to become an independent country. The other Palestine is the Gaza Strip, which is essentially poor and mostly cut off from the rest of the world by
this is the most
embargo and a wall that divides it from Israel and Egypt.
A lot of conflicts over here, man.
Without many basic necessities, including clean drinking water. Gaza is very dependent on the UN and the rest of the international community for aid. It's controlled by Hamas. Khaled Mashal is the chairman of Hamas and has led the party since the 2004 assassination of the Hamas leader al-Rantisi. Mashal, though, lives in Qatar. In 1997, Israel tried, but failed, to assassinate him in retaliation for the bombing of a market in Jerusalem that Hamas claimed responsibility for. It's Hamas who has been the target of repeated Israeli military actions recently, including this year's Operation Protective Edge, which was a response to a number of attacks by Hamas against Israelis, including kidnappings and rocket attacks, both of which have been aided by the digging of many tunnels under both the Gaza-Israeli border and Gaza's southern border with Egypt. Hamas uses these tunnels to smuggle in weapons and money that it gets from others in the region who have an interest in destabilizing Israel's security, like Iran. In its response to Hamas, Israel has taken heavy criticism for its destructive and vengeful airstrikes that kill a high number of civilians. There are generally two ideas for how to end the conflict and give Palestinians statehood. The first is a two-state solution, where Israel and Palestine would be two sovereign countries living side by side. This is the strategy embraced by many in the international community, including US President Barack Obama, and is embraced by people like Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his Likud party. But time after time, negotiations around this solution fail because of the many issues it has to confront and resolve, like what to do about the 750,000 Jewish settlers in Palestinian areas, the instability of the Gaza Strip, the fact that the Gaza Strip and the West Bank aren't even connected, and of course, who would control Jerusalem? These obstacles have given rise to a second alternative solution that's embraced by many Arab Israelis and even Jewish politicians like the newly elected president of Israel, Reuven Rivlin. They think the only practical way to go is a one-state solution compromise, where neither the Palestinians nor the Jewish people get exactly what they want, but would instead be unified in one single state that would ensure equal rights for all of its citizens. Proponents of this plan think it would solve one of the world's toughest problems and remove the entire area from the criticism of the modern world. The main argument from Israelis against the one-state solution is that it would instantly end the idea of a Jewish state and would make Jews a minority again.
Oh,
But
okay.
looking at the numbers on a combined Arab-Israeli state, Jews would number 6.6 million and Arabs around 5.6 million. Of course, that's before the issue of people migrating back to this unified country
Yeah.
is settled. Another issue that would require a creative solution is the wealth gap between the technologically driven and very prosperous economy of Israel and the much more challenged economic situation of the Palestinian territories. Thanks for watching.
Yeah,
Hopefully
that's
this
a
video
real
helps you
challenge,
see
man.
the
Yeah,
situation
Israel is one
with
of the
your
most
eyes the
popular.
next time it's in the news. But I want to know what you think. How should the Israeli-Palestinian conflict be solved?
Oh, wonderful, guys. And I know there have been a lot of conflicts, in that Palestine area, and so yeah, wonderful, good, good to. Glad that I have watched this video and got some, good information about those Israel and Palestinian conflict. And yeah, that's all for this video, guys. And I'll see you in the next video. And then keep running the potatoes. Peace out.